Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. We are here with you on Facebook.com and YouTube.com, both /WakeUpCallDT. And of course, you're listening worldwide on MixLR.com /WakeUpCallDT and on WakeUpCallDT.com's homepage. With that being said, we're picture in picture here with Matt Langel, the head coach of the Colgate Raiders men's basketball program for D1, fresh off their advancement into the NCAA Division I men's basketball tournament here for 2022. Matt, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Dan.
Absolutely. And Matt, first and foremost, for you to look back on your history and where you are today, I've obviously, seen that in the past you talked about that, you wanted to play and it wasn't a thought in your head to be a coach. Now you've had so many years under your belt. When you look back on your playing days and obviously wanting to continue that, and now that you have been coaching, it may have not have been the original plan, but what do you think about it now that you've done it and done it successfully for so
long? Yeah, I mean, I'm the type of person that I never really look back. So yes, we're all a residue of our experiences. And so I think, I rely on those playing experiences often, and as I reflect back, I continue to try as a coach to remember what it was like to be a player, because I think that impacts your coaching. The further removed we get, the more we think, like our generation, and mine's getting, further and further removed from the young men that I get to coach. So I try and reflect back to, those times as a player and things that you're looking for in a coach while you're, trying to be challenged and work with a group of guys to, achieve a common goal. I certainly, those are some fond memories, but we've also been able to build fond memories now as coaches, and I'm extremely proud of that.
And we look back on this history of coming to Colgate in the Patriot League back in 2011-12 and seeing an 8-22 record advance all the way through to where we are now in 3 of the last 4 seasons. And obviously the one season that's not was the COVID year where you played less games, but 24-11, 25-9, 14-2, and 23-12 in these last 4 seasons. What is happening at Colgate under your leadership, in your opinion, that has created sustainability and success? Because we've seen teams make it and then drop off, but in these last 4 seasons, we've seen kind of the evolution from when you came in 2011 to this consistency here in this bulk of work. Where do you feel that comes from, in your opinion?
Oh, I mean, if there was an exact recipe, I could write a book about it or bottle it up and sell it, and then I wouldn't have to work anymore. So I don't think, even for us that have lived it and experienced it, that there's, an exact thing that you can put your finger on and say, this is it, this is the ticket. I think it's a culmination of a lot of things. The first one, it's cliche for coaches, but you work to build a culture, an expectation, a system, so to speak, of the way things are done. And so, it takes time. That's not an overnight thing to get that in place. And so, we did win 8 games in year 1, and then I think it was 2, 10, and then maybe 13. And I think in year 4 we got to 15 or 16. If my memory serves me correctly, which was second place in our conference, which was kind of knocking on the door of competing for a championship. And so I think that all of those guys, the players who were involved in that and committed to it, and the staff and the administration, like that kind of set the table, built the foundation, so to speak, of what it was going to take. But we didn't win a championship, and some of our guys that had been there, they graduated and they left. And so then you bring in some younger guys, but I think that foundation was there. It was never like we had to, reconstruct that foundation. And then that next group, it went back to, I think, 10 wins, and we started to ratchet it back up to the point of, we lost in the championship game against Bucknell. That was the first of 5 consecutive championship games. And we felt like, hey, we're knocking on the door. And so, that group was able to stay together and there was some consistency, and we won the next year. And so it's just kind of built from there. And now, you want to continue, now that you have expectations and a culture and established confidence that, I think it's earned. You can have two kinds of confidence. Like you can just, have a bravado, like I'm the best, but there's no evidence of it or nothing to kind of, rely on. Or like our guys, they've earned the level of confidence that they play with, that they work with. And so, they know what it takes because of the experiences they've had, and that's passed down a little bit now over time. And so hopefully, as we continue to move forward, that we have enough guys who are kind of stepping up into the vacated roles and, continue to knock on the door. It'd be foolish for any coach or any leader of an organization or program to think that you're just going to continue to win every single time. But what you want for your program is to be in position to compete for those championships, to compete for those opportunities. And again, we feel good about what we've accomplished and what we're going to try and continue to do.
And we look at, these last four seasons that I mentioned: regular season 2018-19, a regular season champion in the Patriot League, conference tournament champion, advanced to the NCAA tournament, regular season champion the next season, conference tournament champion the year after that, NCAA tournament. And this past season of 2021-22, regular season champion in the Patriot League, conference tournament champion, and the NCAA tournament berth. 3 NCAA tournament berths in the last 4 years says a lot about building that consistency and that culture. And I know you said, if you could bottle it up, then you could just write a book and be done with it. But when we see Colgate more often than not, 75% of the time in recent history, making it to the NCAA tournament, there's a statement, in my opinion, being made about who the Raiders are and what the expectations are. So I would love to get your thoughts on that as the leader, that Colgate is not one of those, oh, wow, they made it, that's great. It's, oh, every single year they're going to push, like you said, in the conference tournament of the Patriot League, and you're going to try to represent that league well inside of the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it, and it's what I hope will continue to happen. I think, I can just speak to it a little bit. Like, one of the challenges this season for our guys, as we've been, becoming, so to speak, and as you win your first couple, I think you're still, arriving to see the type of program you can be, not just the team that you are. One of the things that our guys, we had a very challenging non-conference schedule this season. And we lost a couple games there that I think other people maybe thought we weren't going to lose. Like, we lost at Cornell, even though they had a phenomenal season to finishing in the top 4 of the Ivy League. We lost to Niagara at home. And I think people were saying, well, what's wrong? Well, I mean, anybody can win a game. Like, we won at Syracuse. Colgate hadn't won at Syracuse in decades. But the interesting piece of it was, like, some of those teams, when we lost the game, they celebrated. And our guys, they weren't experienced with, like, somebody celebrating when they beat Colgate. Like, we lost at Lehigh. We had some challenging circumstances going into the beginning of the conference. We hadn't played for a while because other teams had COVID issues that caused us to miss the games, and we didn't play great. And we lost a really close game. I think it was a 1 or 2 possession game on the road in league play, which, that happens. You lose games in league play. Everybody does. But Lehigh celebrated like they won, like it was the championship. It was the first league game of the season, right? Yeah. And so our guys had to adjust. And I tell that story not to, be braggadocious or anything, but our guys had to adjust with, like, being the program that everybody was chasing. The bullseye was on their backs. Like, everybody, wanted to be Colgate. And there's a certain responsibility that comes with that. But I think that's a sense of, that you are where you want to be as a program when, other people are celebrating having beaten you. But it also requires a responsibility and preparation and accountability that you can't have any days off, because, somebody's always getting ready to take their best shot at you when they get a chance to play.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Syracuse game, and the Syracuse had won the last 54 contests in a row, dating back to 1962, and that was the last time that you had won against Syracuse. So we look back at that time period, and it was almost, because this win for you came in November of 2021. It was almost 60 years since the last time we saw Colgate take down Syracuse. I was in the dome for that. You didn't just win on a buzzer beater. You didn't win on a technicality. You didn't win on free throws that came in a last second foul. Colgate ran that game. And what the Raiders were able to do, your team, not just to do in that matchup, but to do it in the dome where you're used to playing every season, and to win by double digits, 100 to 85. That was a game that I sat there, and I mean, in all honesty, Matt, it's historic in the state of New York. It's historic in the history of how many. It was 173rd matchup between the two of you, and to erase an 0-54 run, and now it starts out 1-0 for you. Just what that means to you.
Well, I mean, it means a lot in that. I mean, obviously, and I've been, here at Colgate now. Shoot, we're going on 11. This is my 11th season.
Yeah.
You start to learn history and tradition and rivalries, and so it meant a lot to me because of how much it meant to Colgate, and Colgate people, and alumni, and you know and former players, and just spanning generations. I think it connected a lot of people. It also meant a lot for me because we had a pretty experienced group, and as we set out, trying to establish goals, and benchmarks on a season of things that you're trying to achieve. One of those things for this group was, to win some of those games. Nobody grows up dreaming of playing at Colgate. Everybody grows up with dreaming of playing in the ACC or the Big East or the Big Ten or whatever it might be. So for our guys, we had played a close game against NC State, and kind of not found a way to win. And so, winning one of those games, or competing as well as we could in those games, was something that was important to this group. So, that validation of beating Syracuse in the dome, being down as much as we were early, to fight back and play the offensive game that we did, to shoot the ball so well, and get a little bit of separation in order to win that game. It was a big deal for this group to say, yeah, like, look what we can do. And I talked a little bit earlier about earned confidence. I think that started to contribute. Not that we didn't lose a bunch more games after that, but there was an earned confidence that when we play our best, like, we can go up against a team from a conference that is known across the country for their basketball.
Yeah, and you had made mention of it, is taking a look at the fact that some of these games that you had put yourself up against, second game of the season, when you went to NC State and Raleigh, North Carolina, and lost to them on one possession, 77-74, and pushed them in that. I mean, that came just a few games before your Syracuse matchup. So there's that test, right? And you tested yourself with St. John's and Vermont, a team that made the tournament, tested yourself with Pitt and lost to Pitt on the road by 3. And so, when I look at the season, it's like, yeah, the win over Syracuse is great. But what I see more than that is that this was a team that you were really testing to see, hey, looking down the road, we win the Patriot League, we go into the NCAA tournament, we're going to see some of these teams from around these countries, around the country, from some of these conferences. And I think that having that desire, that fight, that confidence, and that want to test your team, I think, testing their mettle obviously says a lot about you as a coach and your belief in them. And it also says a lot about your intelligence of the game itself. So just to speak to that, even in a loss, just how important it was for your team to see where they stood against the Pittsburghs and the NC States and the Syracuses and Vermonts and so forth.
Well, there's a few things that go into building a schedule. I think first and foremost always is you're trying to prepare your team for conference play. So like you said, you want to learn about yourself as much as possible. And some of that is learning how to win. Some of that is challenging yourself against, taller, longer, more athletic teams, who are gonna present some challenges in the game that you otherwise might not face. And some of that is, for me, in addition to preparation, we also coach memories and experiences. So we recruit guys from all over the country. Some of it is, being able to take a guy close to his hometown. The truth of the matter is we don't have a lot of guys from this part of the country on our team. So, like Oliver Lynch Daniels is from Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Well, to play NC State and Raleigh Durham, he's able to play in front of friends and family that, maybe don't get the chance to see him play that often. Same thing with Nellie Cummings from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So that is also part of the equation. The other part, Dan, is, you talked about the consistency of our program. When you've been able to do what our guys have been able to do, there's not a lot of teams that were really excited about playing us. So,
Yeah.
in addition to playing a challenging schedule to prepare us for the NCAA tournament or for conference play, the truth of the matter is that there are, some programs that are kind of like us, and, whether they had a great season or not a great season, not everybody is excited about playing them. So a number of those games happened because, those are the teams that would play us, and it so happened that a number of them were on the road. I think it really helped us. We did, lose a number of those games, and some of them in, like you said, hard fought, close, late game situations. So I think it helped us realize how fragile the line is between winning and losing, and that you need to be doing everything at all the time to make sure that, you're not in the situation and circumstance that leaves you feeling awful.
Here with Matt Langel, the head coach of the Colgate Raiders men's basketball team, inside of the Cafe Kubal studios on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You just said that, it's a positive thing. It's a challenging thing for you in scheduling, but it's also positive that Colgate is now becoming, like you said, the team that people don't necessarily want to play in non-conference. They don't want to take that L. So what does that mean for you as a coach in this decade heading into year number 11 at Colgate, that you are now becoming that team that maybe when you came in, people were like, yeah, let's schedule, let's get you on the books. And now as you've had more success, they're like, we're going to wait a couple of years. I mean, it's a good problem to have. I know it makes you get creative with the schedule, but having teams not want to play Colgate non-conference, that's a congratulations on that.
Yeah, in a unique way, I guess it is a little bit of a feel good. Again, I don't, you just take it for what it is, and you try. And again, next year's schedule is all about next year's team. And so, while I think it can present a 30,000 foot view of where the program is, we owe it to our guys to build the best schedule for the team that we're going to have next year. And it's not always perfect science, but at this time of the year, after a season ends and you've got a few months to start to build towards next year, that's where your focus lies. So, be it different events or different locations. And the reality is too, our guys have to manage a pretty rigorous academic schedule. So that, it's not like on a random Tuesday we can be playing all over the country. So you've got to factor in all that to building the schedule as well.
173 matchups with Syracuse. Now you beat them in their home by 15. Is there any thought that they're going to say, hey, let's take a break?
I hope not. I hope not. They've been such a great partner. We have such admiration for Coach Boeheim's program that he's built. And I mean, again, I hadn't spent a lot of time in this part of the country, but everything that Syracuse means not only for Colgate, but just for Central New York is really pretty neat. So to be a part of one of the longest standing rivalries or series that each of our programs have, I think is something that we cherish. And so I'm grateful for them to continue to play on a regular basis.
The win over Syracuse is a memory that you'll keep forever. Behind you a lot of memories on the wall. I got to ask you why, you've chosen maybe some of those pictures, because on long days, on trying days, on moments where maybe adversity strikes in such a big way, we have reminders, at least I do, in my office, my studio, my home, that little notes to remind me, or pictures to tell me, or something I wrote down to help me to reflect on that moment and know who I am and remind me of who I am and what I'm doing. Is that collage behind you significantly a reminder to you of when the days get tough, look at what we did?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a reminder for the bad times. It's just there are a lot of stories in those photos, being them, great wins or championships. I mean, my family is in and out of those different photographs. I think that images are important. And I've got a cinder block wall back there that isn't so nice looking otherwise, that you got to cover up. So I'm thankful for our graphic design people at Colgate that kind of put some images together and created them in some ways that you can hang them on cinder blocks. And yeah, it's just people and experiences that you want to keep present, because they represent a lot of great moments and hard work and things that a group has accomplished together. So yeah, just some of my favorite moments over the times.
And we look at New York State, and we look at, what you've done at Colgate. And we talk about making the NCAA tournament 3 of the last 4 seasons. We see that. And then we also, look at the fact of what St. Bonaventure did a few years ago, what they're doing now in the NIT, what Syracuse has done many years, what Binghamton is doing with Lavelle Sanders and whatnot. When you look around the state of New York and, the history of St. John's as well, what can you say to that? Do you ever feel a part of the brotherhood? Do you kind of see, St. Bonnie's advancing in the NIT and hoping the best for them? I mean, the state of New York, a lot of times the focus has been on the big, block orange S, but what you've done at Colgate and what we've seen at Cornell and what we've seen in Binghamton as they're trying to work forward, and St. Bonaventure's and whatnot, there's a lot to be stated about the fact that there's not one team in the state of New York to focus on, and consistency, like we talked about before with you, is happening. So do you feel a sense of pride when you see a team like Bonnie's be where they're at right now?
Well, I mean, as a state in whole, I think our state is very spread out, and the basketball is wide ranging. So I don't know if there's necessarily that brotherhood. I coached in the Atlantic 10. Coach Smith invited me up. He has a nice Coaches versus Cancer golf outing in Olean, which just raises a lot of money. With their great fan base. So I was able to see them. So for sure, when they have had a couple of the seasons that they have, and then dealt with some adversity this season and have rallied to get this far in the postseason to go to New York City. Yeah, you absolutely cheer for those in the business that you've gotten to know, and that St. Bonaventure program is one of them. The teams that there's so many teams in the state of New York that we don't all play against each other, or even see each other, because it's such a wide ranging span. But those that you do know, you're certainly pulling for, and those that you get to play. In the past, we've played Cornell year in, year out for over a decade, so you are rooting for them and following them. I could say the same for Coach Paulus at Niagara. We've had a series in the years where we played Albany or Siena. You certainly follow the teams that you have been on your schedule, and are certainly pulling for them over the course of that year.
We'll look back on this season before I let you go, Matt, and reflect on the fact that you had only 2 losses in 21 games leading into the NCAA tournament. Those 2 losses coming in conference in the Patriot League by 4 points apiece, a total of 8 points. 2 losses in the first 6, and then 15 in a row after that, running through the 3 games of the Patriot League to win the Patriot League championship. This season, 8 points away from being perfect in the Patriot League. Just, you know, what you can say has gone into that much success, and then getting to see those teams again and righting the ship and whatnot, and then heading into the NCAA tournament with one of the hottest streaks in college basketball at the time.
Yeah, I mean, as you look back at it or pull up the schedule and highlight the wins, it looks really cool. I don't know how else to put it. I think as you're going through it, which is what I'm most proud of, this group was exceptional at staying focused on the task at hand. And so that didn't even just mean the next game. Like if they were lifting before practice, it wasn't, you know, it was just being concentrated on their, you know, physical well-being and maintenance and whatever they were doing in the weight room or the training room, or, you know, if we were in a film session, certainly game preparation. We had a crazy schedule in February. Again, some aftermath of some COVID from some of our competitors in our conference. We played Saturday, Monday, Wednesday for 4 straight weeks. Most college coaches, when you have to play 3 games in 1 week, it's really worrisome, because like how are you going to prepare for all those games and rest and be fresh? We did it for 4 straight weeks. And so, you know, that it's just a testament to our guys of, you know, their focus on the task at hand. And so, you know, as I reflect back to that conference season in 16-2, it's absolutely a remarkable feat, because, you know, it's certainly never been done before here. I don't even know if there's another team in the United States of America, you know, to include the NBA teams, that played, you know, more games in that window. And so for our guys to do it without losing focus, without skipping a beat, and being able to keep winning, was really, you know, amidst all the other things they accomplished, that was a remarkable feat.
How much of that did you see in them when you recruited them, and how much of it pleasantly surprised you that, you know, you can practice, you can give them what they need to look at on film, you can give them a regimen of different things that they need to do to work out and be ready, but there's always going to be a level of personal responsibility, right? A level of how much do they want to push themselves when coach isn't looking and you're not around. So did you see that in them when you brought that in, or have you pleasantly just kind of looked back and said to yourself, wow, you know, I thought these guys would take care of business, but they've gone, you know, above and beyond, and really in their small, tiny window of free time, we're doing things that you commend them for?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge part of recruiting, obviously you try and evaluate, you know, skill and talent and athletic talent, and how it might fit together within your program, at your institution. But you're also trying to evaluate the intangibles of that affect winning. But you never really know. I think that we're at Colgate, we're really fortunate to recruit guys, that for almost all of them, I would say, they come from really strong backgrounds where they've had great mentors, great parents, people who have guided them about things other than, or in addition to, athletic achievement. So they're very well grounded and value the everything that education brings you. So, you know, when you come from that environment, you're much more likely to pay attention to the details. And then when you get in an environment where that's the expectation, you know, and others, your peers, are holding you accountable to that, you know, it kind of like has a snowball effect, and it keeps growing and growing. And I think that's what, you know, we were able to see, certainly this season. It helps when you have some mature guys, whether they're young and mature or experienced and mature. And I think that sometimes when you're experienced and mature, it helps the youth mature at a faster rate. And, you know, again, we had some guys with a number of years experience under their belt that certainly helped us.
One of the final points here with Matt Langel, Colgate Raiders men's basketball head coach, inside of the Cafe Cubal studios on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Your game inside of the NCAA tournament against Wisconsin, to look back upon that. 67-60 was the score. It was close all the way through. And obviously, when you're forced to foul at the end of the game, it could look a little bit more separate than it was, but 7 points of separation. I watched this game all, just hoping all the way through that there would be that positive end, not because I picked you guys, but because of what you've done and because of, the fact that you're a team that has just pushed whatever Colgate basketball was, you've pushed it to where you want it to be. And I feel like under you, Matt, that bar keeps rising and keep asking for more of an expectation and kind of what normal is at Colgate. So I look back on that. Half of your shots pretty much went down from three. 10 of the 22 that you made, you went 10 for 22 from 3-point range. It seemed like at a certain point, it was just whatever. And it was pound for pound, right? You score, they score, they score, you score. But Colgate just kept pouring it on. And you really, honestly, I think, in my opinion, I wasn't in the arena, you were, but from the way that game felt, it felt like Wisconsin fans couldn't get comfortable, couldn't feel like safe, because it felt almost automatic at certain points that every time you went down the floor, things were just dropping in.
Yeah, I mean, our guys, again, I think reflecting back on the game, and some of the things that we've talked about, our guys had been the hunted for much of the stretch of that season. And so, going into that game, we were a 14 seed, and although some people picked us, I think that, we were the underdogs. And so, that in that our guys, there was a sense of freedom, maybe a little bit, like the pressure had been off since we, achieved everything that everybody had expected us to do. And so you could play with a little bit of freedom and the earned confidence that I talked about. I think that helped us. But it was a hard fought, and our guys were determined. Like they weren't going to go away. I think we played against a really good team, in front of 17,000 Wisconsin fans, and the energy was incredible. And so I'm super proud of our group for giving everything they possibly had, just on that day in that environment, which was very unusual for an NCAA tournament environment to be in front of. All opposing fans. It's typically, as the underdog, the at a neutral site, the fans are rooting for the underdog. But it was an extraordinary game and environment, and I feel like we did everyone proud to compete toe to toe with the Big Ten regular season champion.
And and seeing, I mean, a unique game too, that there was only 19 free throws cumulative between your team and Wisconsin, 7 free throws for your team the entire game. Strange to see that after a game that there was very little time spent at the charity stripe.
Every game takes on its own identity. It was two teams that don't typically foul very much.
Yeah.
So, although both teams throw it inside, it wasn't until later in the game a very physical game. So, I don't, that's not part of what in reflection of what I'm saying, like, geez, there weren't that many free throws shot.
Final note here for you, Matt, is as you go out recruiting, which is an everyday, all throughout the year thing, why Colgate, in your opinion? Obviously winning helps, obviously success helps with what you've done on the court, but as a leader, what is that central message that when you sit in a living room with grandma and grandpa, mom and dad, aunt and uncle, when you're there with the family, what is the why for Colgate?
Yeah, well, I mean, Colgate's a really unique institution, small liberal arts school, 3,000 students in a small rural community, Hamilton, New York. So the village of Hamilton, New York. I think that we have one of the premier small liberal arts schools in all of the country. When you talk about education, to me, which is what college is all about, do we coach basketball, and want guys who are ultimately, aspiring to be professional players if they can? Yeah, absolutely. But at the same point, you know, your basketball can also open up a lot of other doors. And one of those is the education that this institution has to offer. So I think that first and foremost is what's important, that you're going to be in that classroom setting, engaged in a small environment where you can learn so many valuable things, not just from your faculty, but from your peers, the brilliant minds that you're going to school with every day. And that being said, you know, like playing in the NCAA tournament is what every kid dreams of. So, you know, to be a part of a program that has gone from having, you know, very limited people in attendance to sell out crowds celebrating championships, you know, in a small community where people know you, and not just that you're a basketball player, but they get to know and they care about who you are, is something that's special. And you combine all those things, to me. And again, it's not for everybody. You know, if you want to be on sunny Oceanside campus, college campus somewhere, that's not Hamilton, New York, but it is a great place for the special guys that we've been able to recruit. And you know, we'll continue to keep looking for those who want to be in this environment to keep growing what we've been able to do on the court.
Matt Langel here with us from the Colgate Raiders men's basketball team, advancing once again to the NCAA tournament. Matt, as always, I appreciate your time.
Thanks, pal.